Hi, this is Lord Ryan Savage, better known as Captain Savage. Today we're going to be making an end grain target to go with the portable target stand we made last time. For this build, you're going to need a 2x4 that's 8 feet long, a 4x4 that's 8 feet long. You can also use 2x4 scraps if you have them left over from another project. I did, so that's what we're starting with. You're also going to need some plywood. In this case, I've just gotten one of the project boards that's roughly 2 foot by 2 foot and 3/4 inch thick. Some other things that you might need, because I have found that the 4x4s aren't all necessarily square. I've got a hand planer. It's more of a planer rasp. I also have a handmade sanding block. If you want to make your own, I just use a 2x4 scrap, cut it down to roughly the size of my palm, and I went and found some sanding discs with an adhesive backing and put it on there. You're going to need 2-inch screws. In this case, I've gone with decking screws, the 8x2 inch. You're also going to need some Titebond 3 wood glue. Gonna need a tape measure. Clamps, I think these are a little bit over 3 feet long. You're also going to need some sort of saw. In this case, I used a miter saw, and I will also be using a table saw to cut down my backing, the plywood backing, but I have used a hand saw in the past. Before we begin, I just wanted to talk about a couple tips that I found out for doing this last time. The 4x4 I got was pressure treated. It was also out in the rain. Do not start cutting your 4x4 if it is still wet. I ended up ruining my saw blade. Another thing to be aware of are knots. Whenever I built my last one, I didn't pay attention to that, and I accidentally put a piece with 3 knots just like this right in the center. So it does not like to stick in the center. The other thing is, once you get these cut, you'll want to make sure you puzzle them together. So anything like this with knots, I'm going to stick that in a corner. I'm also, in this case, since the other side's okay, I'm going to turn it upside down and put it in there. This particular end grain target is one that I've built based on several other designs that I've seen. I was actually testing this one out to see what its durability is. I was thinking about using it at an upcoming, a different upcoming challenge, but it seems the time is right. What we're basically going to be doing is we're going to be cutting out 25 3.5 inch cubes. So you're going to take your 4x4, measure out your 3.5 inch, you're going to cut those. Once you get 25, you will assemble them like so. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to glue each row together, then we're going to clamp them inside of this frame, and we're going to let that set for 24 hours before we do anything else with it. So bear in mind that glue will drip down and get on your surface. I believe last time I put down some cardboard so it had something to drip on, so I'll probably be doing that again. So I wish I could tell you that I cut all these perfectly, but I did not. For example, this one right here has got a little bit of a slant. When you're cutting the 4x4, it's kind of heavy, and as you're moving it through the saw, or when I was moving it through the saw, I was having to prop up the end of it in order to try to keep it straight on there. And it looks like I didn't quite get it straight, and so it's got a little bit of a curve up. So basically what I'm going to do is take this rasp I've got here, I'm going to try to make it even, and then try to puzzle it back in. The other thing, when you're looking at your puzzle, if you've got any like rough cuts, anything like that, go ahead and sand your edges. I've gone ahead and puzzled my pieces, or my blocks together. I did a little bit of sanding and planing with hand tools. If you've got power tools, feel free to use them. Just be careful not to take off too much material. Next step is I'm going to be cutting my 2x4s on the top, or on the bottom and the top. It's going to be 17.5 inches. I'm going to get those cut, and then once I have those, I'm going to cut my sides as well. Alright, so I've got my frames cut out. I'm going to set those to the side for now. If you look up ingrain targets, there's plenty of different designs out there. A lot of them include gluing your blocks together. For the particular design that I've came up with, it's experimental. I'm actually going to be gluing the different rows together. Now, this will be glued, 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 glued. And then, once I get them all glued, I'm going to put the frame around them, get that attached with screws, and then I'm going to clamp them down. So I'm going to go ahead and start that fun process now. Alright, so I have my blocks glued together in rows. I've got it sitting up on cardboard so I don't ruin my table. Let's just hope that comes off easy. What I've done is I've attached the frame. Over on this side, I've gone ahead and pre-drilled 2 holes, and I've put in 2.5 inch deck screw. I'm going to come on this side and do the same. I went ahead and I used a clamp to help me keep my boards in place while I get it screwed in. And then after that, I'm going to get the clamp set up. Okay, so my glue is running this way, so I've gone ahead and got the clamps all set up going the same way in order to try to smash everything together. Now, in theory, the reason this is experimental is I'm hoping that once these blocks eventually get broken loose, because your axes are going to do that, if they break, I'll be able to go in and just replace a single block. That's the hope. I've seen a bunch of other different designs that do it differently, so we'll see. Now I'm going to let this sit. Last time I let it sit for 24 hours. This time I'm probably going to let it sit for about 12 in order to make sure I can get this video done in time. Okay, it's been approximately 13 hours since I set this up last night. One thing I should mention, the side that the cardboard goes on is going to be the back side, so that all of this gets covered up with our back panel. So you don't have to worry about scraping any of this off. So right now, the only thing keeping that in there is the clamps right now. What I'm going to do is get my measurements, and I'm going to cut the project board that I've got. The project board is approximately 1.95 feet by 1.95 feet. So I'm going to get my measurements, and I'm going to cut that board on a table saw, but you can also use a circular saw or a hand saw, so whatever you've got available to you. Alright, so I've got my back piece cut, and in this case it was 20.5 inches by 20.5 inches. My previous one was actually a different set of measurements, because that 4x4 wasn't as square as this one. So it ended up being completely different. Now, what I'm about to do is what you see here. This is the first target I made. I'm about to find the center of each block going down each side, and then where these grids connect, that's where we're going to put a screw. I've also put 2 screws in the top and the bottom of the actual outer frame. So I'm going to go ahead and get those set up, and we're going to do the same thing to this one. Alright, I have my markings measured on the back of the target. I just took my measuring tape and I measured 1 3/4 inch on top and the bottom. I did that for each one of these, and then I turned it and did the exact same thing. Then I made my, I took my straight edge, this is, I happen to have a 2x4, and I connected my lines Now when I did that, I made sure to actually get it all the way to the top and bottom of the frame. And then I took the frame with another straight edge and continued it on the side. So what I'm going to do now is actually put my back piece on. I want to get that squared up. And then on both the top and the bottom, I'm going to attach two screws. And I'm going to, that way it doesn't move on me. And then I'm going to make a mark for my lines all the way and then connect them, and I'll have a grid to go off of. I'm going to get that prepped and I'll be right back. Just take in my straight edge here, put it on the edge, and I just went ahead and extended that line up to the top and then made a little notch, or made another line here. I did that all the way around, and then I took my straight edge and connected them. As far as the two screws that I put into the frame, I just looked and put it in between two of the points, just directly in the frame. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-drill all of these holes where these connect, and I'm going to be putting in my 2-inch screws in order to secure the individual blocks to the backboard. I have just finished putting all the screws in the back of this, so you now have a completed target. You can leave this blank as you see it here. You can also section it off into quadrants if you prefer more precision throwing. You can also put a bullseye on it, anything that you want to do. One thing to keep in mind that with these 12-inch arms on here, they do stick out a bit further than the target. So one thing I have thought about doing is reducing them down to about 8 inches, or making an alternative set for 8 inches, because when I'm throwing my axes at them, I have noticed that the handle will hit and either shift it one way or the other, or just completely bounce it off. So you now have a working target and can throw at home. Hope you guys enjoyed this project, and have fun throwing and stay safe.